We are back. Justin and I are here and ready to talk Guardians baseball. Did you miss us? If so, make sure to like, comment, and drop a note below. Show us some love as we return to talk about your Cleveland Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Instead of going positive, maybe I should have gone the other way, but like, they're back. Either way, we're back. I am Jeff Ellis, one of your two hosts of Locked On Guardians. I just actually logged into my 24/7 account today, and it shows that all of my articles exist there from when I wrote as the lead drafts and prospect analyst. But if you click on all of them, it takes me to the homepage. So I'm not exactly sure what that's doing or how that. But if you know about the internet and would like to explain to me if there's a way to actually find my old articles, I would very much appreciate that. Again, comment below.
That's the Wayback Machine you're looking for, my friend.
Yeah.
Waybackmachine.org. That's the only way. They have this is gonna be geek, but this is that they're what do they call it? 303. I can't remember. No, that's the band. No, maybe 303. They're redirecting your links to the homepage. I do that in my daytime. I'm Justin Ladd. During my daytime I do nerdy, geeky SEO stuff, and I used to write. Well, I still write about baseball. You can follow me at different places where I've written about baseball, where I haven't really written a lot lately, but I've done a lot of baseball lately. That's why we're back.
We're allowed to take a break. And I want to thank everyone. As I wrote a note today on the page, it's like, honestly, I had not gone 7 days without doing this show in a very long time. So I hope, I've been doing this since the 2019 season, I believe was my first one. So I think we earned a bit of a break. Let's take a second and discuss media literacy again at the top of the show here. Because people, I know it's boring times. And hey, we had the Sean Murphy of it all and Nathan Eovaldi, the last of the qualifying offer guys signing, which stinks. They went to Texas because that doesn't help our draft position anymore. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. But all these little things kind of happened, and people are kind of desperate for Cleveland to do more. One, Cleveland just doesn't do a ton. That's not their way. And two, the fact of the matter is nothing gets out. This is one of the tightest lipped front offices. There's the great humor. They miss out on Sean Murphy and immediately sign Zunino the next day. The Josh Bell stuff was all like, hey, it'd be a good fit, but no one was directly connecting them until the day he signed. Zunino, there was a bit more of a paper trail. In all honesty, that's one you can kind of track down. But with Bell, we didn't know. I mean, with the Lindor trade, we were discussing hot rumors and takes till the moment that happened. Clevenger, yes, I know there was a dude who reported it was done. I talked to people connected to the team who are like, that deal is not done. They eventually did make the trade with San Diego, but it definitely felt like someone who they're in the finishing stages. Maybe it's, like running out there with a half-cooked pie cake. I don't know. I'm making up my own analogy. And the funny thing in baseball anymore is not to knock anyone out there who does have friends in the front office, but literally, by my count, thanks to everyone on Twitter who gives me information about my friend in this front office, says there are approximately 6 billion people working for those 30 teams and front offices because everyone somehow has an in with at least 5 different organizations, which is weird to me because I've met several of the GMs in baseball and I don't have an in. I'm a known, not to brag here where people get annoyed with me, but it's like, when I used to write at Scott 24/7, it was before there was a lot of draft stuff. Like, I was known to almost every GM on the planet. It was very weird. I would get text messages from scouts like, hey, our GM said you did a good job this year. I've talked about like hearing from, the Nationals that way and the White Sox I had some connections with. And I say that just to be like, I am someone who has been a known person in the past and I don't have connections to more than maybe 3 front offices. And most of them are, they're not giving me anything if something's coming up. They are too, that's a fireable offense to let your friend know a trade's coming down. So anything you're reading right now, just take it with a grain of salt. If it's not Passan and it's not a Boris Klein and it's Heyman,
or Zach Meisel.
Or Zach, yeah. I mean, Zach's great. Like, let's be honest. No one ever run to Zach and anything other than the fact that we love him. He is the best Guardians coverage there is right now. That's not a knock on, Hoynes, who's done it forever, or Pluto, who's done it forever, or Mandy, who's, been an up and comer 100%. But Zach's kind of been the dude for the last 5 years. I mean, whenever Bastian left, right, to go cover the Cubs, was that like 5 years ago? You know, he's great. But yeah, I just want to take that moment and be like, stop trusting accounts that have like
no picture or no real face on them.
And it's not even that. And again, I don't want to get into what got the other, like the Golden State podcast, in trouble, because it's not about credentialed versus non-credentialed in this case. It's not anything like just to be smart. Like if someone's got not a lot of follow, like if someone really had good inside intel, 99% of inside intel on all trades and signings, can I tell you right now, does not come from baseball teams. It comes from agents. Baseball teams do not leak much. Through my experience through the years, you know, like, listen, there's a very prominent person I've had a feud with, I guess, in the Cleveland sports area who does break a lot of things. And I can tell you from when we were friendly, all of that came from agents. Like, and I know Justin's closing his eyes. I'm not going to say a name because I don't want to start fights again. You can put 2 and 2 together, but I know from when we were friendly, it was all agent related. Like every little bit of that came from an agent. So when these stories come, it comes from an agent, and then you have to kind of look at any account and be like, why would an agent be spending their time there? Like, I mean, I only hear from a few agents anymore because I no longer have that national gig. Literally, some agents are, you know, don't respond to me anymore. It's mildly humorous. And so I can tell you that like they do care about the scope of your audience and your title. And yeah, it's like, how did we get Hunter Gaddis on the show? Well, his agent reached out to us. Like, honestly, that's how it was. That's how that worked out. To get Tim Herron, I reached out to his agent. Like, that's how this often goes. That's how this song and dance goes. Agents really are the gatekeepers of information and often player contact. And when you see an account, I could tell you, I'm somewhere nearing 4,000 followers. And because I'm no longer the national guy at Scouter 24/7, there are agents who don't talk to me, who used to. Don't have the time for it anymore. There are still smaller ones who do, but you really have to question any bit of what comes from anyone. Because again, all leaks come from agents. They don't come from teams.
Yeah, that's why you said everything John Heyman puts out is Scott Boras related, and I think that's a lot of other stuff too. That with the Jose Ramirez stuff going around, I think we were pretty obvious how that was all getting out. It definitely wasn't coming from Cleveland. I'm trying to think. The only time I can really remember any serious buildup, and I don't even remember who his agent was. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm very curious on who would have leaked it. This is not a conversation we plan to have. I don't want to go too deep into it, but see other stuff planned. But when there was the whole talk about them signing Edwin in the 2016-2017 offseason, you know, nobody really thought at the beginning Cleveland made any sense for him. They didn't think they had the money because there was the Blue Jays had money and the Red Sox and I forget who else. But the market had to really come down to a number where Cleveland was going to get involved. But I do remember, I'm trying to think, Buster Olney had tweets about it, and John Heyman had tweets about it, and Jeff Passan had tweets about it before the deals were done. And it was just talking about, you know, Cleveland's interested, don't know about the money, and that was pretty much the gist of it, right? So that's the only time I can really remember any serious buildup that followed Cleveland to a transaction, a big transaction at that, that actually came out. Like, look at the stuff that happened for years with Corey Kluber. Like, I swear the offseason, but the 2019 offseason before they, or whatever, 2018, the year before they actually traded him, John Morosi had Corey Kluber traded to the Dodgers like 5 times, like 5 different times before it finally happened the next year to Texas. Like that, you know, that was a bunch of runaround too. The Lindor thing, like you said, just kind of happened. Everyone kind of knew they were trading him, just depending on when things went down. Yeah, my New Year's resolution, everybody, is be better at media literacy. Like, read things a couple times, do some extra reading and extra clicks, and do some extra background work before you think that something is true or something could be happening. These, like you said, fans don't have sources. There maybe some people have, like an uncle or somebody, a cousin they see at Thanksgiving and gives them something, but I highly doubt it. Like, that would get them fired, like you said. If
we have
if my
friends
cousin
who became scouts who like don't tell us jack. Like,
right. To be fair, we don't really ask. I don't ask.
We don't press. I mean, no, but I mean, like, it's not like this stuff comes up in a regular conversation. Like,
right. They're not dropping that. No, especially when it comes to the off season, and especially when it comes to Cleveland, you could see other stuff moving around the front offices. Some front offices are a little more leaky than Cleveland, but again, as we've seen in the past, nothing comes out of Cleveland unless they want it to. If they want something to be out, they will strategically do something with it. And I think we've seen that time and time again with Paul Hoynes is the main culprit whenever they put something out. Or even I think Terry Pluto, sometimes they have done. I think Fran Mill's conditioning.
Fran Mill was definitely all.
That was something going on with them, I think so. But yeah, just my rule of thumb is if they are not willing to put their face on it, I don't care how many follows they have. I don't care what sort of access they do and don't claim to have. If you don't put your face on it, I don't buy it. I'm sorry. You have to have a face on it. If you're not, and you have all these people too who are like, oh, hearing that so-and-so might be interested, but not sure, or, you're just going to hedge your bets on info. Like, you're just going to say, well, I heard this, I think this is going to happen, but also, they're just trying to get attention and throw stuff at the wall. And if they get it right, like you said before, ooh, they look good. Give me credit. Give me credit, Ken Rosenthal. If they get it wrong, nobody pays attention because they have no face on it. They have no skin in the game. I don't trust those people. Sorry. Don't send me tweets by those people ever again. Anybody listening, don't send me tweets by those people.
So a classic example of this is actually a friend of the show. Sully every single day tweeted out for about 5 years. On this day, this pitcher is going to get a no-hitter for the San Diego Padres and break the streak. And he tweeted that every single day. It became a thing because they were the only team. Were they the only team that never had a no-hitter? It was something along those lines. And when that happened, he went viral. He went 100% viral when Joe Musgrove threw that no-hitter. And that's exactly, it didn't matter that he literally tweeted that every day. People aren't looking for that. That got ran with. It's the same thing. There are guys who pop up that have, if you can get enough, think back to the LeBron plane tracking people, or the random kid who's he's coming back home, had no data, never backed it up, nothing to really go with it. I don't know what happened there, but I felt you can gain 100,000 followers if the Twitter follows you in the right way and people believe you. And like I said, I could literally sit here and tweet, I heard Sean Murphy was being traded today every single day in the off season. And then the day it happened, that's all that would have mattered.
Congratulations. You're right.
Yeah. And that happens. And again, we literally saw it with Sully, and, it was a shtick for him that led to just like I said, biggest day for him ever on Twitter was after Musgrove threw that no-hitter. So yeah.
And we're not talking down on anybody either. I don't want, like you said, I don't want it to end up like the Warriors thing, but I think we're just saying, when you see stuff put out there, think about it. I know we've said this multiple times. Other people have said this too. We're not the only ones saying this. We're not giving you any, earth-shattering, mind-blowing theories. We're not Charlie from Always Sunny with Charlie, right? Do you watch that show? Okay, we're Charlie not Charlie.
Yes, we're also Charlie on the show.
Yes, yeah, right. I just started watching that, so my reference was a little bit thin there. I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it landed. We're not doing anything groundbreaking here. We're just saying, think twice. There's the cybersecurity thing I hear every day from my job. They talk about use the 3-second rule before you click on anything. Look at the link, look at the writing before you click on something. Use 3 seconds and make some judgment. Same thing with anything media related. This isn't even sports. It could be anything in the world, especially in the age of Twitter and the word I can't say show that it is.
Yeah. The thing I can't currently log into. But yeah. And again, it's not to just talk to anyone, but it is having been at a point in time where I was literally I wasn't talking to Boris, but Boris had a comp account on my scouting baseball site. I can tell you that, as did Brian Cashman. I could see if they logged in and read, and I can tell you they did. Because that's also, hey, that's your lack of security, just, for things you subscribe to. But having been at that level, they're not giving that information away for free. And honestly, all of these talks on, and the big thing today was the Guardians pitchers. The plain and simple truth with Plesac and Civale is, one, there are still plenty of guys left on the market. We'll talk about Corey Kluber in a moment in segment 2. But 2, Plesac had a negative WAR last year and has been diminishing returns for 3 years in a row. and Aaron Civale can only pitch about 130 innings in a year. So these aren't huge value guys to begin with. Like, yes, a deal could come together. I also would not be shocked at all if the Guardians hold on to them and don't sell low, because they never sell low. But let's take our first break here in the action, come back and discuss, talk about pitching a little bit on today's Locked On Guardians. But first, this quick word from our sponsors, our good friends over at BetOnline. I disagree with our good friends over at BetOnline. I saw some of our inner chat that had the Astros as favorites to win the World Series. I wouldn't go with that. I think Justin Verlander is a big loss, and Abreu is a perfect addition for them. But as we'll talk about in segment 2, pitching is incredibly valuable, incredibly hard to come by, and elite pitching, just forget about it. You're not finding that readily available on a market anywhere without paying out the nose. That being said, BetOnline is still your number one source for sports betting info and stats. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl to basketball. They've got you covered at betonline.net. And if you love podcasts, they got those too, which you obviously must do. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Pitching. Corey Kluber signed essentially a 1-year contract. Second year, I believe, is a team option. So he got $10 million with a $1 million like buyout for next year. And with that being said, guess what? Corey Kluber pitched better than Plesac or Civale last year in terms of WAR. He was more reliable. He wasn't necessarily as good at peak, but he got essentially $10 million at what age is he now? Like, he's going to be age 37. Wow. He was worth 3 WAR last year, but when you are 37 and worth 3 WAR, and probably for at least for next year, Kluber has more value than Civale or Plesac based on previous year data.
Yeah, I think some of that is how Tampa Bay handled him too. They were very careful about no third time to the order. They rested him when they could. He was a 5 and fly guy, and they knew what to get out of him. I don't know that Boston will be quite as good for him. So he might be more valuable than trading. Obviously, he's more valuable because all you got to do is pay money. You don't have to pay prospects. And let's be honest, the Red Sox are in disarray, and they're not going to be trading prospects for Zach Plesac and Aaron Civale. They don't even want to trade for Ben Rosario. There was a little note, I forgot. I think it was Ken Rosenthal last week. It was like after all the shortstops started coming off the board, that the Red Sox, had some discussions about him at Rosario, but those kind of faded out pretty quickly, and then there was no real traction or interest there. So they're not trading anything for anybody. I don't know. The trade market's so bad, and I think I want to say it was Ken who also wrote it, and I think Travis Sawchik also said it. There's so many teams who are looking to contend this year. They're not looking to trade anything of value. They're not looking to trade prospects. It's a dead trading market for a reason. What's the biggest trade besides Sean Murphy that happened? The one that happened last week. What was that? Was it
the Moreno for we could talk about that. Varsho and Gurriel.
Besides Murphy, that was like the most juicy trade all off season, and I don't think it's going to get bigger than that. That's it. I think it's going to be a dead winner, and I think you're right. They might hold just because A, they'll have depth, and B, they're you could see them do in the middle of the season what they did with Bauer and Clevenger. They could just move in the middle of the season, and that also gives them some cover too for Cody Morris would be a better starter than those two guys. Is he more reliable than Aaron Civale in terms of health? We don't know that yet. So there's that component to it. And then you've got Pilkington is on there, and you got Gaddis and Curry. So, at least it gives you some ability to push guys to AAA. I know innings are hard to come by, and roster spots, there's no roster fodder. But I don't know. There may not be a market. There may not be a market for those guys.
How many 100-inning seasons does Aaron Civale have between the majors and the minors?
18, 21. 3?
Yes. 3 and 7 years. That's across the majors. And his high for innings ever was 124 in 2021. If you combine his major league and minor league innings last year, he got up to 110. He only had 97 this is my point. This is not he's projected for 134 innings next year. That is what you're hoping that you can build Espino and Morris up to. And that's where Civale is projected, because and what team's going to trade for that? Like, particular, he has been good. Like, he's been close to a number 3 starter at points, but not consistently. But there's no trade market in a guy who is held together with duct tape. And maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but like, it's a legitimate issue. And teams, if they're trading for more of a back end type, they want a guy who can hold up. Where on the other side, Civale and Plesac have been up the same number of seasons. Plesac, again, if you get rid of the 2020 season, because it was, a weird season, even though that's his best one, Plesac has pitched 100 innings every single year in the big leagues, 115, 142, 131. He has not been as good as Civale overall, but at least he's consistent. At least you can count on him. Neither of them are that good of a tradable asset.
Not unless he's taking his shirt off aggressively or punching him out. And then,
then
his injuries are self-inflicted. And
and
Civale's have been little dings and dents.
He's still, like I said, over the course of a season, you get more appearances out of Plesac. And I mean, the highs with him are definitely higher and the lows are definitely lower. But I just think honestly, like, neither of those guys are that interesting for teams. Like,
I think they're better off just waiting till the season and letting somebody get hurt and be like, okay, we could use, I don't know, maybe somebody will go out there and decide they need some depth. I mean, the Rangers went out and added 6 new pitchers this offseason, although I don't know if you can consider Martin Perez a new pitcher because he was there last year, but the Rangers literally added 5 new pitchers this offseason. So there's not a lot of teams left that are going to be doing that. Like, a lot of other teams have pitching that's better than that. And I think nobody wants to get back to prospects. And we also have to talk about the fact that Cleveland's hard to trade with. Let's be honest. They are difficult to trade with. I think that's part of this as well.
Yeah. Would you rather pay Corey Kluber $10 million now and $1 million later, or pay Plesac, nearly 3 while also having to give up a prospect? Like, is $7 million, for a guy who next year is likely to be worse between the two of them? I mean, the math doesn't compute on a lot of levels. And I think it's not a matter of teams not being interested. It's just, they're not that good. And listen, maybe, I had a follower bring up a great point, and maybe it'll be true that Plesac could gain more value because he is good at controlling the running game with his pickoff move. And maybe and like, he is in it. Maybe you don't trade him because he's in a position to recoup some value this year. And if Civale can stay happy, well, I hope he's happy. I hope he is always happy. But if he can stay healthy well, that's a Cleveland pitcher robot thing they do. They don't know how to integrate a smile. Just wait for Kluber's faceplate to fall off.
It's not in the programming.
No, it's not in the programming. But yeah, if he can stay healthy for the first half and really put together a season where he looks like he is going to ascend, like, there's many points where he thought he could take another step. But like I said, last year, the first half was dog poop, and then it was injury, and then he was awesome, and then he was injured. So I think they're in a situation. I think you have all 5 go out there. I love Cody Morris to death. I'm close to calling it a big 4, not a big 3. But he's going to give you max 110 innings this year, right? I think Pilkington's better long-term in the pen. We'll talk maybe more about the big 3 in a second. But first, let's take another sponsor break at this point in the show. Come back and get into continuing to talk about pitching, because it's kind of the story right now. Maybe throw a little bit. I had some people say they wanted to hear our reactions to that Arizona trade, so we'll try to throw that in segment 3 as well. But first, I'm going to not cough. Getting better, huh? You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home, okay? It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that can happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake. to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Apologize that in my dramatic read, I pulled the mic right into my face there. So if it got super loud, well, sorry. So here's the thing with this Cleveland pitching staff. We were discussing a little bit before we got on air. I know there is some kind of confusion because Lindor would not sign, but Jose Ramirez did sign. So some people think Shane Bieber might sign. Jose Ramirez signed a bad contract and then had his breakout season immediately after. He was going to be locked up into his age 30 years and is a player who had his desire to stay in Cleveland and had engaged the Guardians at multiple points with his agent to try and stay. Francisco Lindor never really took any offers. Shane Bieber, from what I understand, has never really taken any offers either. Shane Bieber is gone in the next 365, likely. I mean, maybe it stretches out to the next 400, but Shane Bieber is not here long term. You look at the rest of this pitching staff, people are ready to pay the freight to ship out Plesac. Civale, as we talked about, cannot stay healthy. Quantrill is a solid mid-rotation. Tristan McKenzie is a 2 when he's on. When he's off, he can be a little bit lower. I don't know if he's quite that upper tier, but I think he could potentially get there. After that, you've got Curry and Gaddis and Pilkington, all three who might be better relievers. Cody Morris, who makes Aaron Civale seem like an Iron Man in terms of health. And then you got the big three. It kind of boggles my mind how much people think this team is set in terms of pitching, and that let's trade one or even two of those young arms to go get another position. The pitching isn't good. One could argue, and I will argue, this team's biggest weakness is starting pitching.
I would still argue it's catching.
I mean, yeah, fair. But at least they've done something.
Not defensively. Offensively, it's still an issue. Although last year, the way Hedges regressed defensively, I would say it's catching. And, given Zunino's health last year, we don't really know. We assume he's going to be fine. They say he's going to be fine, but, we've never really seen too many position players come back from that injury, and because there just haven't been any that had it. But I would still say catching because I don't know. It's hard to include prospect depth in there because you don't know what you're going to get, and some of their best pitching prospects aren't even on the 40, and they're not even close to being on the 40 until a year from now. So, it's really going to depend. I don't know if you can include them in that discussion. So, I mean, you're right. It's definitely not. It's fine at the top. I think there's a reason they didn't want Cal Quantrill. I don't know. I don't think ideally you want Cal Quantrill starting 2 playoff games. I could even argue, I don't know if you want him starting 1. If you do, he's got to be like your 4th guy, and you're getting back to, or you're trying to, they should have 5 implied him. That's another story we already covered that. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason people kept talking about, going out and getting Pablo Lopez. There's a reason they were connected to, who was it? Tyler Mahle, who went to the Twins. There was a little bit of smoke there. They were interested in Tyler Mahle. There's a reason I have been trying to wish cast Corbin Burns or Brandon Woodruff. They do need additional resources there that are already proven and healthy versus prospects. And to be clear, I would be willing to trade one of the big 3 for Burns or Woodruff. I don't know which one, truthfully, off the top of my head, but I would be at least open to that idea, whereas I am not open to that for, say, Sean Murphy or Bryan Reynolds. Not open to that for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right. Catcher is a bigger need because there's so many question marks. But I guess because the ceiling is so low there, you can get around with it being miserable, as we saw a year ago. Pitching, though, it's like, I mean, yeah, I just have a hard time seeing. To me, that is certainly the bigger need than, say, like you said, outfield or any other position outside of the whole black hole that is the catching experience in Cleveland. But yeah, I find it interesting how many people feel like they're going to re-sign Bieber and everyone's going to find a new gear. And I think we kind of take for granted, not for granted, take for granted, the pitching development, right? Like, it was so good for so long that I think we also sometimes need to take a step back and realize that, like, Kluber, Carrasco, Bieber, Bauer, Clevenger was a top 5 rotation all time in Cleveland Guardians history. All time. Like when those 5 were there, that is one of the best rotations in the history of this franchise. And you can't always expect to keep finding that level. We'll see if the next level of prospects can step up. But I think it's a little bit crazy to think, just assume it's going to keep rolling.
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I think they've definitely shown, I don't know, they've had a bit of a couple of years here. Like they haven't really had any prospects come through that can upend Plesac and Civale, because if they could have by now, those two would have been maybe gone sooner. When those guys came up, we thought, oh, here comes the next wave, right? And those guys have had their issues, and they've been serviceable. I mean,
yeah.
When Civale's healthy, outside of the first half this season, he has been a good pitcher. Plesac has had his moments for sure, but it's definitely, like you said, it's not a Kluber, Carrasco, Salazar, Bauer, whatever rotation of domination type outfit like they've had in the years past. It definitely needs to improve, and we think those guys are coming. We think the big 3 and Cody Morris and Joey Cantillo and Logan Allen are all coming. They've all got their red flags as well, maybe outside of Bybee. So, I mean, I still think they can do it. I have no doubt about that, to be honest with you. It's just,
I just don't think you can count on it hitting that high. Like, I'm not saying they can't develop guys, but saying that you're going to have 5 of the top 12 pitchers in the American League again, that just feels very unlikely.
Probably not. No, I'm not saying they're going to get to that high of a level. I'm just saying I think they'll continue. I mean, McKenzie was a good success story. We didn't know if how he was going to play out, and it worked out pretty good in their favor. Bieber was a good success story. He came a year before Plesac and Civale. I don't know. I mean, will they ever reach that level again? I don't know. It's possible. If everybody hits their ceilings, they can, right? But how often do prospects totally max out their ceiling, right? Not very often. But I think with the guys they have enough pitchers they can come close. Good enough to be more than playoff caliber. I mean, division winning caliber, playoff caliber. I don't know about World Series caliber. We'll see. I mean, look, it's so fickle. Corey Kluber, they only had Corey Kluber was like the only healthy starter in 2016, and they rode him and Andrew Miller to the World Series. They came back the next year with Kluber and Carrasco, and they won 100 and something games, and they
didn't pitch Carrasco twice in that series.
Right.
That's going to still be the thing. That is my annoyance in that series from now to the end of time. He was the best pitcher they had in the second half, and then they.
So my point is, you just don't know. I mean, as good as that rotation was, as good as those two guys were, they haven't won a playoff series since they won a playoff series this year. That's a lie. But until this year, they hadn't won one since 2016. But
they're not the Twins over here, dude.
That's true. They are not the Twins. The Twins are also not moving forward too. So that's the other thing. We have a lot of time to discuss too. But the division is not exactly threatening right now. I mean, are you scared of Andrew Benintendi replacing Jose Abreu? Not so much.
And Joey Gallo for Carlos Correa.
Oh yes, terrifying. I mean, I know you love Joey Gallo, and I have nothing against him. Just
but still, it's a little bit of a downgrade. We're gonna call it a show. We're gonna continue on our YouTube show from this point forward. So if you'd like to join us there for a few more discussions, we'll discuss the Varsho for Moreno trade, since we've wanted that over on YouTube. But I want to thank everyone for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading. It helps. We had another really strong month, so I really appreciate everyone who was taking part in helping out, and by downloading daily, liking, subscribing, commenting, all of that. So thank you very much, and go Guardians, go. So yeah, if there's anyone hanging around, my whole point here is I just want to say they can still develop. They can still have a great team. I just think that rotation was special, and I just want to give them credit for being a special rotation. And my whole point in all of this is I really like those young arms, and I wouldn't trade them for the world right now unless I was, doing a Sandy Alcantara trade or like maybe a Freddie Peralta trade where you're getting multiple years of control. Because I just feel like what's going to happen if you had a Woodruff is they're likely to trade him in a year. And you're getting like 6. I don't even think they'll engage in it, just with the way this team tends to operate on things. But I definitely wouldn't trade for an outfielder. And people got mad at me right before Christmas because I pointed out that like By the way, Bryan Reynolds and Oscar Gonzalez had basically the same runs created plus last year. So,
and I have more faith that Bryan Reynolds will repeat that season than I do 100%. Oscar Gonzalez. But I know people are going to point out the logic here. Like I said, they weren't going to trade any of the big three pitchers. I keep seeing people tweet, "Oh, the Pirates want pitching for Bryan Reynolds." That was like it was a John Morosi tweet. It was like before Christmas, and everyone was like, it was something about what they might have wanted from the Yankees, and there were just some unfounded trade proposals going back and forth with people, but nothing that was actually reported. It was just talk show fodder, unfortunately. But they were saying, "Oh, the Pirates want pitching. I know a team that has pitching." No, they weren't going to trade any of the big three pitching prospects for Sean Murphy, which was a bigger need, who is a more impactful player because of the being on both sides of the ball, how badly they needed that.
And has more control.
Has more control, correct. I know people are going to say, well, Sean Murphy's only had 2 good seasons too, and one of them he had 216. He was only 101 runs created plus last season. Yeah, that's the same thing as I guess Reynolds has had the better career to this point so far. But if they weren't willing to trade those prospects for Sean Murphy, they're not going to do it for Bryan Reynolds. They're just not. I don't think it's going to happen. And that's about it. I don't see it happening. And like we just spent the whole first last segment saying is they need these pitching prospects because they need to take them where they need to take them where they want to go is these pitching prospects. Could they use another hitter? Absolutely. Do I think that it would be better for them to upgrade from Oscar Gonzalez as a hitter in the lineup? Yeah, if you replace, I don't know, Bryan Reynolds, whoever with Oscar Gonzalez, for Oscar Gonzalez, and it's an upgrade, that's fine. That depends on the cost, but if the cost is one of the big three pitching prospects, it's not going to happen. It's not. When has this team ever traded actual pitching prospects? Like, think about the trades they made. Justice Sheffield was probably the biggest pitching prospect they traded, right? Because the Lucroy deal was Sean Armstrong.
Sean Armstrong was the pitcher. Yeah.
A reliever.
You have to go back to Ubaldo Jimenez, but the thing I'll say about Ubaldo Jimenez is Pomeranz, it took him a while to get figured out as a reliever. There's control issues, right. And the book was out on Alex White. Anyone who really followed that team knew that Alex White wasn't going to translate. He was a big name first rounder from, I want to say, UNC, who was more like name value. That was back before we realized. And as the college performer, he tore up the lower minors, and they traded Joe Gardner, who was like a 3rd round pick. That was a loaded deal in the wrong possible way.
That's the last trade you can really think about they made dealing away pitching prospects. Like all the moves they've made, and if not, Justice Sheffield was probably the most recent high profile pitching prospect. And guess what? Didn't work out. Now, would they trade one of their pitching prospects that they think if they thought they weren't going to work out? I suppose so, but I think you'd get a lot of people other teams saying, okay, why all of a sudden do they want to trade this guy? You always look into that. This is exactly what people should be asking at Tampa Bay. Why does Tampa Bay want this guy? Why do they want to trade him? I think you get a lot of people saying the same thing. Like all of a sudden Cleveland wants to trade Gavin Williams. Okay, why do they want to trade Gavin Williams? What do they know that we don't? That's what I'm saying. So they have not traded pitchers of those ilk for quite some time.
And when you look at I think the other problem, honestly, with trading any of these pitchers is you get down to it. It's also going to be the whole, you're selling low on Daniel Espino right now because he wasn't healthy. He is not selling at max value because teams can rightfully be like, well, he's always had, the minute they drafted him, I said he was going to miss a year due to injury. He missed 3/4 of a year instead. We'll see if it comes going, but that affects his trade value. Tanner Bybee, they're going to say it's 1 year. We need to see what can happen. He's not a guy. There's a reason why a lot of places are very slow to even elevate him into the upper part of the top 10, which you and I don't agree with. But, right. It's this whole, there will be a lot of places that, for most of this year, it was obvious after about 2 months that Bybee should be ahead of Nick Casey in most places, but he wasn't because one was a 2nd rounder and one was a 5th rounder. And that's how prospect rankings work. And, Williams is in some respects might be the most tradable asset. But again, I will say there were teams that had him off draft boards. My old co-host wants to come on because of his previous injury concerns. Had some teams really spooked. As we've seen with Carlos Correa, old injuries can spook the heck out of teams. So, yeah, I mean, Cleveland has the pitching to trade, but it's hard to trade it right now in a weird way. It's the same thing like last year. All I got was people who were like Nolan Jones and Tyler Freeman trades. Well, they both had labrum surgery or labrum issues. You couldn't trade either of those guys, or no, labrum for Freeman and ankle for Jones. Yeah. But that meant they weren't tradable assets. Like sometimes people need to realize it's not just, this isn't, MLB The Show. We're not just lining things up and hitting buttons. There's more to that story.
I think, I don't know this for sure. This is just a shot in the dark for me. There were a lot of people who said that Cleveland was very aggressive after Matt Olson last offseason. And I guess I can say the lockout maybe got in the way of some of it, but look, the deal was still made anyway, even though the lockout was over. So you can't say it was the lockout because other teams found a way to get stuff done when the lockout ended. But I wonder if they could have used a Freeman or a Jones in a Matt Olson trade. But guess what? They weren't healthy. They didn't have great seasons. Well, that's not true. Freeman was having a good Double-A season before he got hurt. Jones was not having a great season. No. I wonder, would that have allowed them to make such a trade for Matt Olson, to have one of those two guys be healthy and be, more dependable trade chips? I guess, we'll never know. And that's pure speculation on my part, because who knows what Oakland wanted him. Oakland clearly has a different value on certain guys, but I keep thinking Tyler Freeman just sounds like an Oakland name, but he is not. He is a Cleveland Guardian, and I still have no idea where he's going to play this season. But yeah.
Does anyone know where he's going to play this season? It's just, it's so hard to find a spot. We still don't know what they're getting for Owen Miller. Owen Miller. That's still an unknown. I also want to point out, I was looking at their page. I have to laugh at the fact that the Brewers have becoming Cleveland North. Did you catch that they signed Thomas Pannone, who was really strong in Korea, to a minor league contract?
I did see that. Yeah, not surprised. I mean,
very much their type as well.
I'm trying to think who they have up there. Is it Matt Arnold is their GM? But I think was he a former Cleveland guy?
I can't remember.
David Stearns was at one time a Cleveland front office guy. I don't know if Matt Arnold was, but David Stearns has Matt Arnold's ear, obviously, so there is that.
Yeah. No, but that definitely amused me. Let's talk about the trade. I saw some people being like, see, Ellis, you don't know anything. Toronto they feel comfortable with Kirk being their catcher if they're trading Moreno. I think we are going to see a Varsho catch 30, Danny Jansen catch about 70, and then maybe another 60 to Kirk. I'm not saying he can't catch, but I think more than anything else, to me, I think what this deal showed is that teams don't trust young catchers, right? Like, here's Toronto. They've got a catcher who can't really catch, a catcher who's got 2 years left and has been incredibly inconsistent, and then a guy who is at points been considered the best prospect in baseball. And that's the guy they traded. And I really like Daulton Varsho. I've talked about it on the show. I'd love to see Cleveland chase him. But you look at his WAR, it was mostly buoyed by his defense, not his offense. So he did have 27 home runs, but there wasn't a lot of great supplementary stats. And he was playing in a hitter-friendly environment. It's kind of interesting that, in some ways that he nets you Moreno. And I think it does speak to just teams do not trust young catching.
Yeah, there's a reason that Adley Rutschman is special, right? Like that's when you have guys like that, that's kind of about it. Even Carson Kelly never made it in Arizona. I don't know if necessarily it could go a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of people who are like, remember what the Andrew Miller trade? People were like, oh, why didn't they trade Bradley Zimmer and then hang on to Clint Frazier because the Yankees demanded Clint Frazier. That was what came out. The Yankees. Yeah. It wasn't here, pick one or the other. It was no, Clint Frazier is the reason we're doing this deal.
Yeah.
It could have been the same for Arizona. It might have been, we're not doing this deal unless you include Gabriel Moreno. We don't want Kirk because the same concerns you have, or we don't want Jansen because he's, kind of a quasi starter, not really a guy you're catching 120 games a year. He's not a bell cow catcher, to borrow a phrase from football running backs, but. I don't know. I think I do like Daulton Varsho. I don't know how much he's going to catch there. I think he'll catch some, but I think they prefer to leave him in the outfield, and they can. I think it's really,
probably.
Yeah, I think it's more of a nice to have with Jansen's injury issues in the past, and not knowing how much Kirk's going to hold up, and they can DH Kirk. That gives them a little bonus. The same thing we keep talking about David Fry. Obviously, Daulton Varsho is a heck of a lot better third catcher than David Fry because he's a potential Gold Glove center fielder with a good bat. He might be a platoon player too. He hasn't had good numbers against lefties, so we don't know about that either.
No, I just think this sets it up for. I think the lion's share of the catching duties will go to Danny Jansen because I think you also want to. Yeah, and you also want to. If he has another good year while he is the main catcher, he'll have more trade value with less control next year than he has right now. So I think they're hoping to set up for trade value. Kirk is going to DH, and then you got Varsho can be in a pinch or also probably, like I said, catch 20 to 30 games. But I thought it was interesting that Arizona took Yuli back because they already didn't need outfielders. So I don't know what they're going to they're not done trading. I'll put it that way.
I think Yuli can play some other, not Yuli. It was
Ron Gurriel, right? It's the other Lourdes Gurriel.
Lourdes Gurriel, yeah. I think he can play other positions besides the outfield. So if they want to use him in like a utility role, they can do that. I like that return, though. I mean, I like what they got for Varsho. To be honest, I know Moreno's probably not going to hit for a ton of power. We'll see. Maybe the environment helps him out, but he can hit, and he's got a good arm. That's a nice start, and he's certainly an upgrade over Carson Kelly. And they needed to move an outfielder, and they weren't going to catch Daulton Varsho. So I think it was a good move for both sides, to be honest with you. And I do like them getting Lourdes Gurriel. I've liked Lourdes quite a bit in the past for Cleveland, too.
He's basically only played left field for the last 3 years. So he's pretty much a left field only. And he's I believe, a free agent to be. So that's the only reason. So and they already had too many outfielders. That's part of the reason they're making that trade. And they went out and added Kyle Lewis, and now they've got Gurriel, and they still have their same glut. So that's why I think they still there's a trade to be made, and maybe it's Alec Thomas for something with the Marlins. We'll have to see. They do have that trade history there, and makes some sense.
What do you think about the people who are like, why didn't Cleveland do this? I think it's I think Arizona. You can never match these up 1-to-1, like we've always said. You can't just say, well, they took Cleveland's or
Moreno's better than Naylor.
Yeah, there is that.
A much the higher ceiling prospect, and then Cleveland doesn't have an extra bat anywhere.
Right. I know some people said Ahmed, but.
No,
at this point they don't seem set on trading him at this point, and
Ahmed and Naylor is not a 1-to-1 in this situation, and Gurriel has been a much.
But I think Arizona,
he's a bat first guy. He's their DH.
I think Arizona was very obviously looking for a catcher. That was the whole thing.
Yeah. They got a guy who's at least had some experience in the big leagues, and Gurriel will probably be their DH. Honestly, right now I'm looking at roster resource. Pavin Smith is listed there. Pavin Smith has been another Virginia unsuccess story. Sorry, Aaron. But it has not gone well for Pavin Smith in the big leagues. And
Seth Beer.
Man, that's what a classic Houston Astros deal. Like, they draft Seth Beer and then drop him in the low minors where he absolutely rakes. Of course he would. They draft, was it Corbin Martin? Was that the reliever from A&M?
Or JB Bukowski. And then
put him they put these guys in the lower minors where they perform. I liked the Bukowski's pick, I'll be honest. But they put him, and then they used them all to, but it was a weird situation for Greinke. I can't really fault any side just because St. Louis was trying to get out from that money so they could turn around and give it all to Madison Bumgarner.
What a weird franchise. That's why they're going to finish in fourth place this year.
So much talent too. That's the crazy thing. I don't know. That's a fun team. And
although the Dodgers are hurting, so
And that's the thing too. Like, I know we're not going that long for a long show, but like everyone talks about Cleveland's lack of depth in the outfield as part of the reason. Like, yeah, like I am not the biggest Oscar Gonzalez believer. I think I've been very honest about that, but I'm like, he's earned an opportunity. Maybe he proves me wrong. You know what? If he doesn't work, you got Brennan behind him. If he doesn't work, you got Valera coming up. And if he doesn't, like, they have a nice set of waves where I actually think their outfield depth isn't that terrible. It's like, okay, then maybe Will Benson gets a legitimate shot, or see if Palacios can hit, or if John Kenzie wow. Like, they have a lot of guys already on the 40 man. You know, maybe Micah Prees forces their hand as an outfielder. Like, they actually have some options. The Dodgers started Trace Thompson, and right now are projected to start him again, who spent isn't he the Thompson who spent a whole year in AAA for Cleveland at one point in time? Couldn't even crack the big leagues.
Who's that?
Wasn't that Trace Thompson who spent a whole year in Cleveland's minors? Who like?
I don't know if he was there for a full year, but he was. It might have only been spring training. I can't remember. I think it was spring training. I think they let him go for another opportunity. So I don't think that's true, but I could be wrong. He might have spent some time there, but it wasn't. He was not there a whole year. I know. I do remember that. You're going to prove me wrong. I'm very confident that I'm wrong now, because you're going to find it.
Have I been muted the whole time? Why do I not have sound? Now you're muted as well.
I was muted too. Yeah, you were muted. Okay. You were muted for the last minute now. I kept telling you I couldn't hear you.
Oh, but you were muted as well, so I couldn't hear anything from you.
Well, I kept. Oh. Well, yeah, because you were talking. I didn't want any feedback to come. I kept doing this.
Oh. No, 2019. He spent the entire year in Cleveland's minors.
Oh, okay.
It was his only place. So this guy who has a BABIP of 100 points above his career average is going to start for the Dodgers next year. Do you know who Cleveland's 29 outfielders in 2019, top 3 outfielders in terms of plate appearances that he could not crack?
2019?
2019.
Oscar Mercado was out. Bradley Zimmer was still here.
Zimmer doesn't make it yet. He's not quite there yet. He was hurt, I believe.
Okay, he was hurt. Greg Allen
was about.
He was up there a little bit.
He was 6th for appearances.
That Michael Brantley was gone after that. Mm-hmm. He was already gone. I don't know. Tyler Naquin.
Naquin, Mercado, Bowers is your outfield. And then you also had Leonis Martin at 4, Luplo at 5, Allen at 6. And your 7 was Yasiel Puig. Your 8, Carlos Gonzalez, got 117 plate appearances. Trace Thompson couldn't crack that. Yeah. So, and the Dodgers are starting him. So, yeah.
But he had a great season last year.
He did, but nearly a 400 BABIP. Reasons for concern if you were a Dodger fan, but my whole thing is just like Cleveland's outfield depth isn't bad compared to most of baseball.
It's not. I mean, it's all unproven, but
yeah,
I guess we'll see. Except for, I don't know. I mean, Quan is, I guess we'll call it proven, and Straw had one bad year. Everybody else hasn't really had a lot of track record. Even you can say even Straw doesn't have a track record. So there's talent, but there's a lot of downside too. We'll see.
Yeah. No, it's Remember, the Dodgers added Bradley Zimmer to potentially help their outfield, as well as Jason Hayward. It'll be interesting, but yeah, no, listen, Cleveland built up their pipeline, and we'll see if it works. But I think Oscar Gonzalez deserves a chance to play this year, and if he absolutely falls apart by June, then say it's Brennan's job. And if if things don't work out, you got Valera waiting in the wings, you got Noel waiting in the wings. They talked about Tito Francona unprompted talked about playing Naylor more in the outfield this year. Like, they are not at a loss for outfield options. So I just want to, and I know everyone hates Straw, but they have built a team with fly ball pitchers. They are going to want part of their advantage of a fly ball pitching staff, starting pitchers, is having the elite defensive quant and Straw. That might be even why they kept Jimenez at second base, to help cover up some of the issues in right, give, more coverage. So,
yeah.
But that's our return show for the day. We said we wouldn't have anything to talk about, and an hour later, here we are. So thank you all for listening, rating, and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Doing everything you can. Oh, never mind. That's an old thing. Sorry. Thank you for everything you do, and go Guardians, go.